When I first heard about Indianapolis Reentry Educational Facility, or IREF, I thought I knew what was coming. In my lifetime, I have visited a few different prisons, so I thought I knew exactly what I would be walking into. When the instructors told us about their past students, and how crabby some of them got when they found out that they had to go into a prison, I was honestly kind of shocked. I found over time that while I thought I knew what IREF would be like, I did not actually have a clue. I found that the security was much more laid back than what I was used to, and I thought the facility in general was a lot more laid back as well. This gave me a sigh of relief and a better feeling of comfort because I realized that for the inmates, being in this prison as compared to others was a privilege, and one that would not be granted to just any prison inmate in the state of Indiana. This was the first step of me feeling more comfortable about what I was walking into, and it set me up to really take the time to actually talk to the guys, be nice to them, and be happy about the IREF visits. It showed me that they are residents, not just inmates. Visiting IREF has taught me a lot that goes right along with our criminal justice course, our speech course, and our V100 course. When I first thought about how we would be visiting IREF, I didn't think that I would get much out of it from an educational standpoint. I found this did not hold true on our very first visit and tour of IREF. Immediately I learned about how not all prison facilities are the same. We have talked about sentencing in J101 and how many people can be sentenced to many different things, such as probation and detention. It was weird for me to see on a first-hand basis that not all prisons are insanely strict like the other prisons that I've seen, and that the residents at IREF still have many great freedoms other people who make bad choices aren't so lucky to have. We learned about different types of implicit bias for a long time in J101, and I think that while visiting IREF, I came across one that we didn't get to take a Harvard Association test for. That implicit bias is that when people hear about people in prison, they typically think of mean, rude, or even dangerous men. From personal experience, I have seen the insides of prisons, and I have talked to people inside of these prisons and seen that they are all human. However, I was shocked throughout this IREF experience to see how scared some of the classmates were at first when they were around these men. I was also shocked to see how in the beginning, before the visits, I got the feeling that our group even looked down on them. That view and feeling has changed tremendously in our group, and I think that it is a super important thing for any future member of the criminal justice system to experience. One day, when we are all a working part of this system, we will be educated on the implicit biases and be able to not only avoid acting on them, but to teach our peers about these things so that our system can learn to avoid implicit bias as a whole. Learning in J101 about implicit bias has changed a lot of my everyday thinking because I now realize when I am using implicit bias in my everyday life. I think that if we educate others through casual conversation and through experiences like IREF, we can help change the way implicit bias affects our system as a whole. When I heard how Toastmasters would be what we did on IREF, I made the obvious connection to our speech course. Everyone in our group knew that practicing public speaking, no matter who with, would go right along with our speech class. However, one thing that I learned in speech that taught me a lot is something I would not have necessarily gotten without IREF. This thing wasn't the skill of public speaking, but it was the process of communication. I never realized until this speech class that as an audience member of a speech, I am part of the communication process. I am a listener. Without me learning this, and learning that the desired outcome of any speech a speaker gives is a desired response, I would have never taken what I have taken out of IREF. These things helped me in IREF because I wasn't just sitting there while the residents were speaking. I was actually taking in the words that they were saying. I remember sitting down listening while Barry was up there talking to us about his family, and how I felt bad for him being away from them. Barry is a model inmate and has a special job within the prison where he earns much more money than a typical resident would make. He is responsible and he is a really nice guy. It hit close to home realizing that every one of those guys was separated from someone they loved, and realizing that in some instances this separation of love, family, and home came from just a simple poor decision that they made in a weak moment. Through the things I learned in speech about listening and the stories I heard at IREF, I learned and understood that a human being's life can forever be changed in one decision, with one action, in just 1 second. your life can be changed or even over with. Without the things we learned in speech about the process of communication, I would have never made this connection through IREF. Connecting this experience to James's class has been somewhat of a challenge to me. It has connected greatly to some aspects of his class, such as the IREF visit being a good resume builder or a good job interview topic, but it has not had a tremendous impact on my personal life. Not yet, that is. I have taken away the knowledge of how great this would look to job employers if I were ever trying to become a police officer or a prison guard. And I am extremely grateful that I have had this opportunity. These professional connections to James's class are just the obvious ones. The one way that I think the IREF journey has helped me personally is in realizing that one quick decision can change lives. That is something that always comes into my mind when I hear about criminals on the news now. I no longer think, lock them up and throw away the key, because I see that that always isn't a good answer. I see now how some people in our criminal justice system don't really need to be there, and I see how much it can affect their lives both personally and professionally. This experience has improved me personally by making me more of an open-minded person who looks at the whole situation and not just the small facts that I know. I think this has made me stronger in the way that I think about everything, and I am glad that I've had the IREF experience to help me with my everyday thought process. IREF has been quite a ride. This is the least that I can say about it. These men who I did not think that I could connect with have made me feel bad for them. They've made me feel anger toward our criminal justice system, and they've made me laugh so hard that it brought tears to my eyes. I've enjoyed spending time at IREF a lot more than I thought I would. I didn't ever stop to think in the beginning that maybe these men would be easy to connect with and fun to be around. The sophisticated, intelligent way that some of these men act has opened my eyes to the fact that society has some super bright minds being wasted in a prison cell. This experience taught me more in many aspects of all three of our themed learning community classes, and I truly do not think that I could have learned these things without the IREF experience.